Hello and welcome back to CoachesCorner.health. If you're new to our channel, welcome. And if you've been with us for a while, welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about what it means to be stuck in second guessing your decisions, and specifically talk about why we second guess ourselves in the first place. Is there something deeper going on that has us doubting our abilities? Or does it come down to trust, meaning trusting our instincts, our gut? Or does it simply come down to not believing in ourselves? These are some of the things that we'll touch on today, and we're happy to have you as here as joining in with us in our discussion. Hi, I'm Leslie Gadet. I am a self-care specialist for female entrepreneurs and professionals who need to incorporate more self-care into their life and business so that they can stay sharp, focused, and wake up with more energy and intention to tackle their daily activities with confidence. Andy, tell us who you are.
Thank you, Leslie. I love your introduction. Hello, everybody. I'm Andy Lidstone. I'm the unconditional coach. I help people deal with boundaries and control issues. Today's discussion is an interesting one. It's something that nearly all of us do pretty constantly, a lot of the time without even knowing it. So yeah, what's actually going on here when we second guess ourselves? First of all, what is it? What does second guessing ourselves even mean? I think most of us have a pretty good idea of what we think it means, but let's put that right on the table. What does it mean to second guess yourself? What do you think it means, Leslie?
Yeah, I mean, it can be in two different areas of life, right? Like your personal life and your professional life.
Yes.
As an example, I'm going to just go dive right into professional life because I've been in the industry of law for 4 decades, a little over 4 decades. And we've talked about this before, where I found myself really being good at what I did, but then I started to second guess things that I already knew that I'd been doing for quite some time, and yet found myself going and asking the main lawyers in the office, is this the right, like, how do I do this, when I already knew the answer? And
Right.
did that come down to really second guessing because I feared that I wasn't right, or feared that maybe if I made a decision that I would make the wrong choice, I'd have the wrong choice? And I think that's what it came down to for me when it came to my professional life, especially in my career. It's happened even most recently. I had that happen a couple weeks ago, where, I did question my response to someone who asked a question. And my response immediately, I knew the answer, but second guessed sending my response, instead checked with the lawyer on the actual file to make sure I was right, which I was. But again, that whole idea of, is it right? I think that's what happens. Is like we get into our head, because we think, oh, we often will find that we'll fall back on, like, oh, is this actually right? Even though
Mm-hmm.
we might have been doing it for a long time. Now that's on my professional side, and it can happen in your personal life as well, like second guessing your decisions and your life path. But that's for
Yeah.
me specifically when it comes to work.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, second guessing myself is specifically around like the things that I already know. It's normal to guess to second guess and question yourself when you're learning new things. I mean, we're kind of supposed to, when we're learning new things, question, is this really the truth? Investigate and figure out and research and figure out if this is actually what we believe or what we want to believe. When we're learning something new, that's normal and understandable. It's part of the process. But when it comes to something we've already established, we're already good at, we've already done several times, you know, um, we've already been in using or doing these things or saying these things or whatever the thing is, we've already been doing that for a while. Whether that's a while in a few hours or a few years, whatever the case is, we've been doing it. And so second guessing yourself comes from a place of more of insecurity. For me, it comes from a place of, am I really sure? Oftentimes, it comes as a thought right after, am I being arrogant? Am I just being conceited? do I think I know this thing because I think I'm smarter than I actually am? So I second guess myself, doubting myself and wondering, am I really, do I really know this thing, or do I just think I know this thing? And that brings in a lot of doubt for me. That is comes from a place of insecurity. It comes from a place of having been proven wrong many times, um, and accepting that I have been misinformed, or that I have been mistrained, and that's okay. The problem with second guessing ourselves is it creates that doubt. It creates that insecurity. A lot of the insecurity we feel about ourselves come from our own thoughts and our own decisions. For me, a case of insecurity, self doubt, and things that I already know, that I've already been doing, that I'm already sure of, that I already have experience of. A lot of the times, I'll second guess myself on something I've been teaching people for years, and I doubt and I wonder. For me, the professional version comes down to this course I'm building on unconditional boundaries. I have gone through several iterations of this course where I've gone completely back to the drawing board and restarted the whole thing from scratch, just because I was unsure about what I was teaching, the message I was getting out there, and is it what I wanted to do, and was it the most efficient way, and things like that. For me, it's really been about, am I sure I know what I'm talking about? What I'm building in this unconditional boundaries course is concepts that aren't talked about anywhere else. So they're brand new ideas. They're not out there in the world already. So I can't just go to somebody else and say, is this right? Because these concepts don't exist yet. So I'm creating them on my own. And it's much easier for me to second guess myself on something that I'm inventing. Does this actually work? Are we sure? So um, it does come from a place of do I believe that I know what I'm talking about? Is it, am I sure? So for me, it's often an insecurity. It's often a a complete opposite reaction to being scared of being conceited or arrogant. So I go completely the other way and doubt myself instead, which is an interesting circle to play in. But that's what it is for me. Um, so why don't you tell me about your experiences with self doubt a little bit? We've talked about them a little bit in the past couple of episodes, but I wanted to dig into that a little bit, in the professional sense.
Yeah. So, you know, when you doubt yourself, especially when I've been doing, as I said, I've been in that industry for so long. It's kind of curious for me to actually think, like, why am I doubting something I already know? But like yourself, I am now I'm also a coach, and I work with women around specifically mindset, emotional awareness, the self-care pieces, which are all relative to self-love, like how they take care of themselves. And so in that instance, in the beginning, it was like, well, yes, I did the work for me, and I found tools that worked for me, and I continuously use these tools to support myself. But now I put it together, and I've been working with different women with the products, the programs that I've created. And some of them were based on my own, like you were saying, your own ideas. Some of them are based on my own ideas. And so I'm using my own ideas to create lifestyle changes for the women I work with. And what I found is, like you said, when you don't have someone that knows what that, to ask them, like, about their experience around a specific idea when they've never actually been exposed to it, it's an interesting, it's hard to find a way to actually get the answers that you seek. But it's really, what I've allowed myself to do is just get the support I need while I figure it out. So yeah, with self-doubt too, I think, is when I started to just to figure out, decide who I wanted to work with. Recently, I decided I'm going to take a step back a little bit so I can really get super clear on some of the things that I'm doing, I'm still working with clients, but I also want to make sure that moving forward, I'm really creating that environment that's really supportive. But coming with that comes the doubt part, because is it the right decision to take a step back, to re-examine the process, to then get really super clear on the process, to how my messaging is, how I articulate the process, to making sure that's clear. Am I shooting myself in the foot by doing that? And so that brings up the self-doubt. But then
Right.
I recognized that for me, it's not about what other people have decided is the right model. Like some people will say, well, don't worry about doing that, just continue what you're doing. But for me, I like to make sure that the process is not, it's not that it's perfect, but that it really is in alignment with the women that I seek to work with, that are looking to me to guide, for me to guide them. And so if that means going back and looking at the drawing board and making sure that all the ducks are in a row, that it really does make sense, that it's in alignment with the purpose that I've laid before my life purpose, that it's in alignment with what the women are looking for, uh, that serves them better, but it also elevates my coaching, because that makes me like work better at what I do, to want to show up. So in this particular stage of where I find myself, self doubt has shown its face many times. And how I've managed to cope with it is having communities of other people who are in the coaching industry to support me as I go through this journey. So that's how it's kind of like affected me.
Yeah. Yeah. And that last part about having other coaches in the community. Obviously, you and I support each other, and we've talked about your program and what's going on with your program, and you and I've talked about some of the details, and we've discussed some of that, and I've offered some feedback and some some ideas of my own. Ultimately, the program is for women, so there's only so much I can do to support you in that. But I have, and you've appreciated the work that I've given you. Um, Same with my course. You and I've talked about my course several times, and you've given me some brilliant feedback. Some of the key elements of my course come from the feedback you've given me, right? So we have supported each other, but it doesn't stop there. We've got, both of us, each of us have several other coaches that we talk to, other people that we talk to in the coaching industry. We have support from not just each other, but many people. And I find the more support we have around these subjects, the more we can look at what actually is something we can improve versus something that's already great, we just need to continue doing more of, right? We can get a third party perspective. One of the easiest solutions to second guessing ourselves is to get that feedback. Like when you said you were talking to the other lawyers and the senior lawyers and saying, is this how I do this, or how do I do this, or what's the right thing here? Sometimes getting that support is exactly the solution to second guessing ourselves. Um, because sometimes when we second guess ourselves, we actually lose the power and quality of the original thought or action we were going to do. Right? We water it down a little bit. We lose a little bit of what we were going to do. So when we get this feedback from somebody else that we trust, somebody else that we respect, somebody else who's in our field, they can help us to really see the value in what we're creating, the value in what we're saying, whether it's our own programs and courses or whether it's a job we've been doing for 40 years. Like it's getting that feedback, talking to colleagues, talking to other people in our field. That is really the thing that has helped me to nail down the difference between something that I can improve and something that I'm really already just good at. And I find that the vast majority of the feedback that I get is that I'm actually already good at this. And I'm getting that feedback from some powerful people in the industry. So it's um, humbling to realize that what I've got is actually a good thing. And that helps me to second guess myself less and less, to really just lean into the knowledge and experience that I have, right? So I love that part about community, about finding other people who maybe they don't understand your direct concepts because they didn't create them, or they don't, they're not directly involved, but they understand the idea of what it is you're building. They understand the idea of what it is you're trying to accomplish, whether it's in your professional career or whether it's in your coaching career. Um, those are the ideas. When we're second guessing ourselves, um, we can go to other experts. We can go to people in our own company. We can go to our colleagues or our peers and get feedback. That is a good way to deal with second guessing ourselves. And yeah, so I like that. Um, Talk a little bit more about what happened in the professional system, in the professional world, as a legal assistant, if you wouldn't mind. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So as it comes to like when you're saying about this whole second guessing kind of what
Yeah.
we're talking about. Okay. So yeah, so I guess the very beginning, let's go back a few years because I've talked about this before, but when I first started out as a legal assistant, I was 19 and obviously I had not gone to school to become this legal assistant. I had once I entered the legal world, I did go and then finally take college courses. But while I was when I first stepped into the world of working in law, it was in real estate, residential real estate to be exact. And in the beginning, it felt almost like I was going through the motions and not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily fully grasping the fullness of what I was doing. I could I was a great typist. I was great at getting the work completed. But when it came to fully understanding what it was that I was doing, because like in Toronto, this is where I worked in Toronto, when first Toronto was first mapped out, there were so many, people just did lines here and there. So they had to
Mm-hmm.
go back and survey it. And so sometimes the surveys, I'd be looking at surveys of properties and come to find that there were encroachments that might not have been readily visible to the naked eye. And
Mm-hmm.
finding having to go back to this, they'd have to go back to the city or the county or to go back to like whatever the government official in the specific field that needed to actually go and look at their property and figure out new things about like how they were going to navigate it moving forward. Um, and in the beginning, I didn't fully understand all of that. So I would see it, but I was always taking it to other people within the firm. Fast
Mm-hmm.
forward a few years, and I'm working for another law firm. So now it is me. It is up to me now to fully understand. At that point, it was my second time of stepping out into the legal world, fully prepared to actually go it alone, do it myself, be the sole person that was um, responsible for that department. And that was great. I actually felt really good about it and felt comfortable and confident what I was looking at. It didn't really resurface again until quite a few years later when after I got married and my husband and I moved down to Florida. And that's where things were different because then I got introduced to working with a title company that was run by two lawyers, and they managed mostly residential real estate. They did some other commercial stuff and litigation stuff, but I wasn't really involved with those transactions. But when I was involved with the residential, and so they taught me a lot about how to read, how to run a title search, how to read a title search. What am I looking for? Making sure things were discharged and what was recorded, looking at all those things, writing up performas, then preparing loan documents, real estate documents, deeds, and all of that. Learning how to then, once the file closed, learning how to write the title policies and things like that. And so I learned a lot of that. And of course, I was very organized and kept all of my notes and how to's. Some of my things were on those floppy disks. They called them floppy disks. I don't know why they called them floppy when they were really hard, but floppy disks. And I would have everything that I needed on these discs, and so I could refer back to them whenever I needed to, just to make sure. But I became very good at what I was doing and then I was with them for a few years and found that I started second guessing my abilities,
Mhm.
being able to make decisions that were once easy for me to do, especially because I already knew what I was doing. But I found myself then going and asking questions that I already knew the answer to that seemed quite unusual.
Right.
And so I found myself actually leaving working for this company for about 2 years. And I ended up working for a law firm down in Fort Lauderdale, where I again stepped into the role of the sole person doing real estate.
Mhm.
And with that, I they relied solely on me to be able to do it, putting the deals together, and I was good at what I was doing.
Right.
But with that comes not necessarily that it's second guessing, but I didn't find it as enjoyable to be in a position where it was just me alone, because I felt like I didn't have anyone to lean on for support on
Right.
those days. If when I would want to be on vacation, if I was sick, and always coming back to a busy desk. So it when I realized that, and I found the opportunity to go back to working for that company again, um, I did. It was closer to home, and of course, at that time they were going to pay me more, and that was a good incentive as well. But the incentive really was because it was closer to home, and that it wouldn't just be myself; there'd be other team members as well in the same
Right.
industry, so that we could rely on each other. And I think that alleviated some of the second guessing. Second guessing, though, it never really goes away, because I think what
Right.
happens, it comes and rears itself when you're learning something new, when you're stretching yourself, or maybe you're the only one doing something, so you have to fully rely on yourself. And so that can cause, that fear of, am I doing it right? Is this the right decision? Is this the right choice? What are the
Right.
repercussions if it's wrong? All of those things. So that's a little
Right.
bit about like my experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. As you were talking, I love the idea of it never really goes away, and I really like that you had more self doubt and therefore were second guessing yourself more often when you were the sole person responsible for these things, is because you didn't have somebody else to go to like, you didn't have that community that you could go to and say, is this right? Do you see this? Is this does this work? You didn't have that, and really that is one of the best cures for second guessing ourselves, is really to have somebody else look at our work and say, is does this make sense to you? Because sometimes we've simply put in a sentence, or we've said something that maybe we didn't clearly articulate what we were trying to say, and we know what we're doing. We know the knowledge, we understand the thing, but sometimes we understand it so deeply that we have a tough time communicating with it, or communicating it clearly. And just that one sentence or a couple of points that we needed to clarify was enough to really lean into our expertise again. We just need somebody to look it over and say, yeah, actually this part's a little bit unclear, but the most of the message is really, really understandable and clear. um, so having those other people to look over it for us really can make a powerful difference. It's not that we're not an expert in the field, or not that we don't know what we're talking about, because we do, like you've mentioned several times. We know what we're talking about. But having that other person, that other set of eyes to look at things, and or to bounce ideas off of, to be able to think out loud and think in community, and collaborate properly is the easiest cure for second guessing ourselves. I love that you came down to that, and that you realized that the more you were left alone, the more you were, solely responsible for a thing, the more we're open to second guessing ourselves. And for anybody in our audience, if you find yourself the only person who's responsible for something, you might think of that as job security, but it's also the easiest way to mess up the job, because who are you going to go to when you're second guessing yourself? Who are you going to go to when you're having a little bit of self doubt? And as you said, Leslie, we all do. We all do on occasion, not all the time, but we do on occasion second guess ourselves. So if we have nobody to go to, then that can cause some real problems for us. So my suggestion to anybody in the audience is if you find yourself the only person in the office who can do a thing, or if you find yourself the only person in your job who can do a thing, I would find a way to have somebody else share those skills with you, so that you have that community to help with the second guessing, to help with the growth, so that you have somebody else to help you become better at what you do. Um, Being at the top of the field isn't always the glory that we think it's going to be. It's sometimes quite a lonely business, and it can be quite a doubting position to be in. Um, Another way that I have managed to deal with self doubt, when I was working in retail, and I'd worked myself up to a supervisory position, oftentimes I would be the person at the top. My managers above me didn't really know my job as well as I did, so I couldn't go to them to understand what was going on, because they wouldn't get it. But because I was a supervisor, what I was often doing is I was often training people underneath me. And when I'm training somebody, if I'm second guessing myself, I can ask the trainee, is this clear? Do you understand what I'm saying? Does this make sense to you? And based on their questions, I can, their questions trigger my expertise, trigger my knowledge, trigger my experience. Their questions, when they're easy to answer, which they almost always were, because again, I was good at what I do. When their questions are generally easy to answer, it helps to fix that second guessing. It helps me to realize and to lean into that actually I really am good at this. And it's why I became good at my job in all of the supervisory positions I was in, because not only was I good at what I do, but I was also good at training other people to do it. Right? I was also really good at helping other people become experts as well in the things that I can do. So this is another way. It's a derivative version of the community thing. It's bouncing your ideas off of other people, but in this case, they didn't even necessarily start with the knowledge that I had. I was teaching them that knowledge, and based on their questions, I was able to lean into my expertise, my knowledge in the area. I often had a coach when they were addressing imposter syndrome in this one seminar, and he was telling the story about how in this one seminar he had an audience full of people who were self-doubting themselves, or doubting themselves, and they were worried about imposter syndrome, and this was what the seminar was about. So he brought up somebody in front of the stage and said, how do you feel being up here? And they were all embarrassed, and they were all, I don't want to be in front of people. And he asked what she did, and she told him what she did, and gave a brief 2 or 3 minute discussion about that. And then she said, does anybody in the audience have a question for her about her job? How would you deal, or how would she deal with this situation or that situation? So a couple of people put up their hands, and one of them asked her the question. And as soon as they asked the question, she didn't even wait for him to prompt her to answer. She stepped forward and stepped into this kind of power position, this power pose, and just answered the question straight out. And the example there was to show that when we're asked questions in our expertise, when somebody calls upon our expertise, we don't second guess that, because they're asking questions we know the answer to. We absolutely know the answer to. So for me, that was a second way to deal with second guessing myself, was by training other people on the thing that I do, on the thing that I'm good at. So community is one way. Teaching other people is another way. to help with the second guessing. But teaching other people is a version of community, right? It is a version of bouncing our ideas off of other people, getting feedback from other people. It's a version of having this idea of other people, um, their input into my thoughts, and that's another way to help to ease the self-doubt. The self-doubt's always there. It's part of our nature to doubt ourselves. It's part of the learning process. It's part of how we become who we are. As we lean into what we're good at, we're going to find things we're not so sure we're good at. So that's, like you said, it's second guessing ourselves is second nature, you might say. It's part of what we do. But at the same
And
time, there are ways to manage that.
yeah, and I think that sometimes second guessing yourself doesn't have to actually be a bad thing, because it's
Correct.
actually taking a pause. Sometimes we get excited about things and we go full force ahead to stepping off and doing it, and find out later that, oh yeah, it really wasn't in our best interest, or it really wasn't something we really wanted for ourselves. I've found that often, even like just going and looking for different jobs and thinking, oh, I want that job so badly, getting the job that I want, coming to find out that it really wasn't the job, that it didn't turn out to be exactly what I had hoped it would be. And it turned out to be
Right.
worse. And that was because I wanted something so badly and said yes so quickly without really weighing the pros and the cons about a decision. It's not about, it's like what successful people do. It's
Yes.
not that they don't jump without thinking first. What they do is they'll weigh their options, and if there's a chance for success, then they'll go ahead and they'll do it. But and of course I'm sure there's been times where they've second guessed their decisions, but I think for the most part, when it comes to doing something successfully, is really about not having all the answers, knowing and feel and having that maybe gut instinct that there's a possibility of you getting exactly what it is that you're looking for, and so you explore it, you explore that option. And so yeah, having that, I really like how you brought that in about teaching others. I think
Hmm.
that's why I love being a coach so much, because it's something that I love to do around the area, my specialty that I coach around, and just being able to help the women that I work with really work through some of their fears and the beliefs that they brought with them their entire life, that have been influencing their decisions without them even really realizing that that's what's been happening. Because again, our subconscious mind really does hold the power. We don't realize it does, but it does. It's
Right.
consciously, we're
Right.
not really in control. And so when I'm in that teaching mode, or I'm in coaching someone and I'm guiding them and asking them questions to help them find answers within themselves, helping them find the questions that they've been trying to figure out the answers to, that helps me to get feedback from them, like you were saying, getting feedback, and being confident in what I do. And I'm not second guessing what I'm doing, because that's something I absolutely love. And I think where this is going, what I'm trying to say is really what I think what helps with not second guessing is really having a passion and purpose for what you do. And that's
Yeah.
what's really
Yeah.
helped me not guessing myself as much when it comes to coaching,
Yeah.
other than just taking a look back. To me, taking a pause and doing a second look at my processes, and who I'm
Yeah.
serving and why and what that looks like, is not a negative to me, because I believe it helps me to grow and become better. But when it comes to
Right.
my corporate world, there really is there's no room for growth other than to continue doing what I do and learning
Right.
about how to interact and learning new things, but always having to lean on the attorneys for last word. Whereas I'm
Right.
the last
Right.
word in what I do specifically on my own. And I think that's
Right.
what's been really helpful, is having that, not only the community, and having the ability to teach others, loving that part of it, getting the feedback, but having that passion for what I do, for my purpose.
Yeah, yeah, I love that, and the passion, the leaning into who we believe we really are, why we're on this earth. Lean into that. The more we embrace that, the more we do the thing we think we're here for. I mean, we still second guess ourselves, but at that point, it becomes not so much second guessing as refining the process. As you mentioned, it's about looking at the process. The knowledge is still the knowledge. Like what I actually help people with. In my case, it's boundaries and control issues. I'm good at that. I'm really good at helping people with boundaries and control issues. The the second guessing is that what I'm good at. The second guessing comes in the process. All right, do I use this step right now, or do I use that step right now, or is it better to talk to them in this way or in that way? Should I bring the light to this particular question, or should I bring the light to that particular question? Where should I focus the attention right now, and what step is the next step in the process? Those are the things that we second guess, as you were mentioning right now. And I don't know that, like you said, that I don't know that that's so much second guessing as it is refining the process, to figuring
Mm-hmm.
out what works. And as we've discussed on several occasions, not as much on this channel, but we've discussed it personally, is that refining the process is important because we're not coaching a demographic or a specific kind of person. We're coaching individuals. When we help individuals, we don't want a one size fits all program. Sure, we have some guidelines that we take most people through, but we customize that per person. Each person has a bit of a different process. Each person has a bit of a different customized situation that we take them through. We take them through things that are relevant to that person's situation and that person's own life circumstances. Um, so in that way, I don't like you said. I don't know that it's so much second guessing as it is refining the process. And the more we do that, excuse me, the more we do that, um, the more we refine the process, the better at what we do that we become. We're always still good at the self love and the or in my case the boundaries. We're always good at that. We're always really good at that. But how we present it just becomes better and better and better each time, right? So at that point, it isn't so much of a self doubt or a self esteem or a self worth or a confidence issue. It's more of, does this serve the people I'm trying to serve in the way that I want to serve them? Is this how I want to serve them? Does this give them the results they're looking for? And how can I give them better results? It's not so much a self-doubt issue. And that's where the difference with second guessing is. When we second guess ourselves, we really are doubting our expertise. And that's what second guessing looks like. And it doesn't have to be necessarily your purpose. We can doubt something we're really good at that isn't necessarily our purpose. Many people have careers. I did careers that we were good at that had nothing to do with my purpose. I had careers in retail selling things that had nothing to do with boundaries or control issues. Nothing to do with coaching or serving people. I mean, in a sense, retail is serving people, but it's so controlled as far as how we're allowed to serve that it's not even the same industry. So second guessing is more based on your expertise, more based on what you already know. You're doubting whether you know it. Are you sure you know it? And whereas refining the process is leaning into what you know and just finding a way to better teach it, to improve what you do. And I think that's an important distinction, right? What's your thoughts?
No, I agree with you. I think definitely when it comes to second guessing, like what your expertise, it's really important to know. Like especially, I think one of the questions that I really feel is important for people to answer is, what is it that you truly want your life to look like? But one of the
Mhm.
hardest questions to answer, because it's so much easier to hone in on all the things that you don't want your life to look like, and yet it's so very
Yeah.
hard to actually say what you would like it to look like without looking at all the negatives. And I think that that's where a lot of self-doubt too, doubting your decisions to make
Yeah.
different choices, comes from why it's so hard, because they look at the, okay, well, I'd like to, maybe I do work in a corporate environment, but I'd like to actually transition that into a more of an online type of platform. Even if I'm serving in the same capacity in that job, I'd like to take it online where I serve, just like myself. I'm still in law, but I serve a lawyer, a team of lawyers and paralegals in California, and currently I'm living in Florida. So I'm able to serve them online, but in the same similar capacity to what I was doing when I worked with them full time.
Right.
It's sometimes that whole second guessing, like when I first decided to do it way back in 2017, when I made the decision that we were going to move, and I didn't know what that was going to look like, but we started planning for it late 2017, and then March of 2018 going ahead with the plan, finding a place to live in Las Vegas, going back to work and giving them 2 weeks notice that I'm moving, but asking them, like, I'd like to stay on. I'd like to be able to support you. I know I can. This is what I can do. And being able to do that. Now, I could have second guessed that decision because I had no other plan. I didn't know
Right.
that if they were going to say yes or no. All I did was I had hope that they would see that I could serve them still in that capacity, because I'd been working with them for 2 years solid, and that I could take it to an online position and be able to serve them. And we did. I didn't just leave it in the hands of the managing partner. I went around to the different lawyers, key lawyers in the office that he relied on a lot, and I told them what my plan was. And I've talked about this before on this channel, and they were able to, they liked the idea. We were able to come up with a position for me to be able to serve them in what they do. And I've been doing that since 2018. So now we are almost 5 years later.
Yeah.
Now that second guessing, like I was saying, could have been really super, super hard, because like I said, I had no other plan except this is what I hope for. I did end up getting that. But the other part of that story is that if the answer was no, then we sort of had a mini plan that we were going to figure things out. We always have. We've managed our entire lives together, my husband and I, and we've been able to do that. But part of that too came from having a strong unit, him and I being able to.
Right.
I had him to lean on, he had me to lean on. If it had been myself, that could have then been, I would have needed my community, like outside, like my friends, my family,
Yeah.
those people to help me make that decision. But ultimately, it comes down to, I believe, choices that are in alignment with the life you want to live. For me,
Yeah.
I needed my time back, and
Yeah.
I knew that staying in a full-time position was not serving me emotionally, physically, spiritually, all of these things that were important to me. And the second guessing was, if I said no, what would that mean to
Right.
my life? Would What would that mean to my life? And so sometimes it does come down to just, taking that leap of faith. Like I said, successful people look at that. If there's some measure of success that they see, they'll go for it. And I think that is what I did that day. And I think
Yeah.
that is, because I also had a community of women behind me at that point, that I had just recently, gotten hooked up with since the summer of 2017, and a great community of women who were supporting me. And so that helped me to be able to make this choice for me. And I
Right.
think it, honestly, if it was to come down to a really important key element to making decisions to help you without second guessing, it's having that community.
Yeah.
Because and even if your community is only one other person or two other people, though, that's someone else to lean on to ask, for support. Am I making the right decision? This is what I ultimately see. Letting them ask you questions so that you can think deeply about your decision
Yeah.
before making it. And if you do feel that you do see some measure of this could actually work, that's when you say, okay, I'm going to do it,
Right.
and allow yourself to go through the fear, because again, fear is going to show its head. But that's the nature of life. That's the nature of being human. Is we're going to have fear is going to
Right.
show its head, especially when you're doubting yourself. But if you've made the decision, go all in for it, and allow yourself to, like, if you believe in yourself that this is the choice I made, then I can do it. you know we have other things that we wanted to talk about today about, is it self-esteem or self-worth? Is it maybe lack of confidence, or is it deeper? Right, it could be all of those things. But I think if you have that community of people in your life, ask those questions, tell them
Yeah.
your fears, say, i
Yes.
am i am second guessing myself. Let them ask you why. Answer them honestly. Let them go deeper with you. These are people that they could help you. Just having that friend or that
Yeah.
mentor or that coach or whoever that is to
Yeah.
inspire you to say yes to yourself, and put second guess over on the sidelines, so that you can actually pursue something. I think it's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, community helped you make that decision to move out of the city that your job was at. You didn't lose your job. You didn't want to lose your job, but you wanted to move out of the city, out of the state even.
Hmm.
Um, and and sure, there was some second guessing, but community, your husband and this community of women that you were in touch with, they helped you. They asked you some of those questions. And as you were talking, I remember that some of I've heard this described in other situations. Second guessing ourselves is the series of questions related to, should I do this? Is this the right thing to do? Am I good at this? Is it the right thing? Should I do it? Comes down to that. Should I do it? The the cure for second guessing yourselves, when you know you're not second guessing yourself, when you know your community is supporting you, the questions change from, should I do this, or should you do this, to, how can you do this? It's not a matter of question of can I. It becomes a question of, how do I, right? When it becomes a question of, how do I, the self-doubt isn't even a part of the equation. It's, okay, this is a problem I've decided I want to solve. Let's solve it. How do I solve it? Where's the solutions? When you're asking yourself, should I, it's much more difficult to find those solutions, because all you're looking for is the potential problems. When you ask yourself instead, how do I, it changes the brain from looking for problems to looking for solutions. When you change from should I to how do I, your brain immediately goes to work to solving the problems rather than finding more problems to solve. And so when you're talking to your community, um, that's when you know you've made a decision. When your questions change from, should I do this, to, how do I do this? You mentioned at several of the law firms, you were going to the lawyers and partners and colleagues in the law firm. How do I do this? When you're doing that, you weren't questioning whether or not you should do this thing. You were just trying to find out the solution to how to do it. In most cases, you already knew how to do it. You just needed that assurance that you knew what you knew, that you knew what you thought you knew. So second guessing is, do I really know this thing? Am I really going to do this thing? Is this the right thing to do? Whereas the solution to that, and the solution that community can help us get to, is how do I do it? What's the right way to do it? What's the thing I'm trying to do? What's the solution to the problem, rather than, okay, let's transition from finding all the problems to, all right, let's solve as many of those problems as we can. Right? Let's find the solutions. And I think that's where the self-worth, the self-esteem, the self-confidence, I think that's where it comes to, is when we've decided, when we've made a decision, this is what I'm going to do, and we transition into finding ways to get it done. That's where our confidence returns. That's where our belief in ourself returns. And that's when we go back to doing what we just know how to do. Right?
Yeah. I love that. I love how you really like rounded that out to like the should I, is it right, is it good enough, to us focusing on what the problem is, or focusing on all the what if it doesn't work, what if it's wrong questions, instead to looking for, well, if I decided to do that, what would that look like? How could I do that? What are the answers to those questions? Those are like, you're looking for solutions, you're looking for the way to do it. And again, leaning on your community helps you, because especially when you are open and accepting to question, being questioned about your decision, by people that you know that have your best interests at heart, and these are people that you ask, these questions, so that you can determine what the right move is for you, so that you no
Right.
longer feel like you're second guessing, but you're actually looking for the actual answer to the question you've been asking yourself, which is, should I, and switching it to, how can I make that my reality. So I love that. I love how
Yeah.
you brought that around to there.
Yeah. It is solution focused versus problem focused. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I made that distinction, both in my retail career and in my coaching business, um, the second guessing changed completely. Right? Like you said before, it becomes a question of refining my process, rather than, should I be actually doing this? Now I know I
Yeah.
should be doing this.
Yeah.
Just
And
how do I do it?
yeah. And the thing is, what I love too is when you go back to do refining a process, it's no longer really second guessing ever. It's really about just making sure that you're still in alignment with the way you've been doing things. Maybe you want
Yeah.
to up level to something different, something
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But you're refining your life the way, where you see yourself going. And that's life, right? Living your life is not just about the same thing over and over again. And or as they say, like the measure of insanity is what, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Well, it's like, it's the same thing with life. If you want different results, and obviously you make different choices, and you explore new things, and you experience new things, and as life goes on, you might find yourself, maybe living a life like, one like myself, where my husband and I, we've lived in 3 different countries now for the past, well, we've been married almost 27 years.
Mm-hmm.
So Canada, the US, and Mexico. And right now we're down in Florida. And so maybe an online position is what you've been searching for. And so, I mean, there's a lot of that happening right now. It seems to be something that a lot of employers are now exploring, to have more virtual, in other words, online community support for their businesses. And then, maybe your life is to travel across your country, and do, work in different places. Maybe you have a vocation online where you're, a social media manager, but you decide you want to see your country. So you buy yourself a truck, and you buy yourself one of those like sleeper, whatever those, what do you call those? Um,
The campers that
yeah,
go in the back
sleeper
of the truck.
campers. And
Yeah.
then you just drive around your country, and you stay in different places, and you experience life, meet new people, but you also have a business aside, a business that supports that. Whatever that looks like for you, it's allowing yourself to live and allowing yourself to ask these questions and allowing yourself to let your community ask you questions to help you to figure out your answers, so that you're always focusing on, how do I make this, what I'm looking at, become a reality? Is it really what I want? Allowing my community to help me decide. And is it really what I want? And how can I make that happen? So you're looking for all of the answers rather than focusing on, well, I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't think it's real. Am I good enough for it? Am I ready? Is it going to be right? Am I going to fail? Instead of looking all at that, look at, like, what if it is fantastic? What if I do make it happen? What all of the, who are the people I'm going to be able to meet, the experiences I'm going to live? Like, looking at life that way, it
Yeah.
is so much more enjoyable and more enriching than the alternative.
Yeah. Exactly, and it is about the choices you make, as you've said several times. It is about the choices you make, about the life you want. So I love that, and second guessing myself is natural. It should happen, and the solution to it is community, questions, purpose. It's about switching your brain, right? As so many things are. This has been a wonderful conversation, as they always are. I love talking with you with these things. The wisdom we bring out of each other is absolutely incredible. I love the perspective you have on some of these things. Um, your your experiences are profound and relevant, and your wisdom that you bring from them is absolutely brilliant. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you to our audience for watching, for joining us, for sticking it out this long. Please like this video if it was helpful to you. If you found anything in it useful, that'll help YouTube to find other people who might like this video. People like you. Share it around to people that might want to hear what we've had to say in this video, and subscribe to our channel to get more content like this, to get more of what we do here. There's plenty of other videos on our channel to watch, so we invite you to do that also. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sticking around, and we hope to see you back for our next few conversations. There's more coming up on a similar subject. We'll be around for more. Thanks a bunch for sticking around with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we're really excited that you joined in today, or if you're watching it back. Andy, it's been incredible. Thank you as always. I love having these conversations because, you've been able to ask me questions which have allowed me to pull from experience, but also and be able to, like, share with each other our life experience. I think
Yeah,
has been really great. Definitely enjoying this series that we've started this year, and I'm excited to see where it goes. And it's always a pleasure to speak with you because I find that we definitely pull out of each other what needs to be expressed.
yeah, yeah,
Definitely thank you to our audience, because it's always wonderful to be able to share with you from our life experience, but we also want to hear from you. I've shared in the comments that if you have any questions, just reach out to us. I have both our email addresses there, so definitely reach out. And if you have, like something that you want to, like something that there's a question that you have, or an insight, and you want to, um, you know you want more clarity around it, or if you have something that, well, you want to hear more of, something we've talked about in the past, or something that is relevant to what we're talking about now, then definitely reach out to us and let us know. Comment in the comments. I put, again, our email addresses in there for you if you want to reach out to us directly. And we're looking forward to the next conversations that over the next several months, as we lean more into what this is about. And definitely we will be bringing you more on every Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern. We're excited to be here, and we're excited to have you with us. And on that, I guess we're going to be
thank you,
ending it
everybody.
early. It's quite unusual for us to
Yes,
be finished early, but we love it. We love coming to and talking to you. and we're excited for what's coming next. So have a beautiful weekend. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Saturday. Bye for now.